I am with Dr. Marcia, who is someone who I am so excited to talk to and dive into their mind and wisdom. Dr. Marcia is one of our teachers inside Heart Bones Online. So, having been a recipient of her classes, it's been really lovely, and so I'm excited to be able to hear more. You are a physical therapist at Black Spoonie and a powerlifting strong woman. And I love all the different hats that you wear. And I think that's going to be really interesting then to talk about being a spoonie. What does that mean? And yet also having the capacity to strength train, to lift weights, to be a power lifter, and also to help others in their movement. And as a physical therapist, teaching and working with people, I'm assuming also through the lens of strength training. And so there's a lot that we're going to dive into, and I'm excited to hear all about it. So, Marcia, is there anything that you'd like to share and fill in the blanks that I missed?
That was pretty thorough. I think that was pretty solid. Like you said, I'm Dr. Marcia Shive. Move with Marcia on all the socials. Also, fun fact, the podcast is still up, but I had a podcast with my best friend, Disabled Girls Who Lift. So we talked extensively with people from different backgrounds and not just chronic illness, limb difference, um, whole sorts colostomy bags, narcolepsy, like the whole gambit. So I also learned a lot from that as well.
Oh, I bet. So, name the podcast title again so that everybody can go quickly download it.
Disabled Girls Who Lift. There's
Sweet.
still a solid probably 60 something episodes up there.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, we
So,
used to go
yeah.
hard.
So, there is a lot of helpful information there, I am assuming, if there's 60 episodes. And very,
Yes, definitely.
and and helpful to give a voice to all sorts of different people, especially those with disability, hey, to also show capability and capacity and working with one's illness or whatever is going on in their body and still finding resilience, I bet was probably the through line in all of that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we talk to folks with multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injury, um, a whole bunch of different stuff. So that can be pretty helpful if that's like a bit of a topic that we kind of graze on and you want something, a little more focused to you. You can always look there and see if there's an episode that's like, oh, I have that. Let me see what she's saying.
Good resource. Ooh, okay, good. Thank
Yeah.
you. And then for our conversation here, we are again talking about strength training. And let's start with your experience, maybe just for yourself in your own body. And what do you love and what maybe brought you to strength training, powerlifting, lifting heavy things? What brought you to it? What keeps you doing it? And the days that you're not feeling up to it, like how do you manage that with the chronic illness and disability?
So, I mean, strength training as like a term and a word can really mean anything. Um, But in general, that was something I stayed away from for a long time. In high school, I played soccer and flag football, and the weight room, was for the wrestlers and the football player. Like, you guys, you don't go there. Women don't go in there. You're gonna get bulky. Just run on the treadmill, run outside. So I didn't really do anything like that. I used to take like cardio classes at YMCA, the Zumba, kickboxing. And then one day, I saw someone in a larger body talking about weightlifting. And she was saying how strong she was, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just fat. You just don't see the muscle, but I got muscles." And I was like, maybe I can get muscles. She wasn't even talking to me, by the way. I was just walking by. And then from there, I just started lifting in LA Fitness. Luckily, I had at the time friends and brothers who were lifting already, so that I don't have to feel like the only person going by myself. That's also a big thing, is just the support and the fear. And then from there, I started with Of course, I started in the dumbbells. Then I started doing barbell stuff and was like, oh, wait, is cursing allowed on this?
Cursing is totally allowed.
Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, I'm strong. What do people do when they're strong with barbells? Then I got to Googling and I found powerlifting. Um, then I did some powerlifting meets. And then I started to have very like unpredictable energy levels. So I wasn't born with my chronic illness. It kind of came on. So I found training for powerlifting really wasn't working out because you have to be committed and it's like intense and it's like 4 days a week, 2 hours. It's a lot. So then I switched to strongman where like my strength carried over. And strongman, every event is different. And you can look at what's going to happen and be like, oh, I feel like I could pull a truck. That sounds cool. Or you might look at the event and it's like, I don't want to pick up stones. I won't do that one. So it's just a little more variable. So you could just train doing random things. And you probably should still be training those hours and whatever, but I got by without doing that. um, so it's just fun. It's just good fun. And in those sports, those strength sports, you're really outside of like the commercial gym. You're outside of the stuff you see with like, fitness influencers and whatnot. Like you're not really, well, now there's powerlifting influencers, but it's not really the same vibe. So nobody's like, "Ooh, if you want to tone your triceps, here are 3 moves." They're just like, "Whoa, that's strong. Put some more weight on the bar." So just pure luck in falling into the right spaces that got me interested in it. And I just like the way I feel when I do it. It's given me confidence. It's given me just a baseline for so much. I could take that strength and try anything and be ahead of other people. Like I started doing pole dancing recently, and I can already climb up. I don't have the cardio for it because it's like doing a rope climb, but I have the strength for it. So that's what keeps me doing it. I like the way it makes me feel, and I like what it can make my body do.
And that sense of capability. And I think that one of the first things you said when you first started doing this, and you're like, whoa, I'm strong. You're like, damn, like I can do this. This is good. Like
Yeah.
that feeling is so priceless and so worth it. And then I love that as you're saying, how it continues into your daily life, and then new activities that you're doing too. And you're like, oh yeah, pole dancing. Oh, yeah, I can bring myself up onto this. And the learning curve is maybe a little bit less because you have that foundation of strength. I know sometimes, especially as you mentioned, these like fitness influencers that are so prevalent in this world that we're in, and they're all like, you should do this and lift that, and you should do 10 reps and this times a week and blah, blah, blah. And then for anybody, sure, maybe, but it all depends and we're all different. And for you, definitely in your
Yes.
body, how do you manage finding your way through so that you can maintain strength or have that continuum of the energy to do the heavy things?
That's another line of luck for me because if I wasn't a physical therapist, I would likely have a harder time doing that. But that's kind of the basis of, besides us being, like private investigators for pain and what's going on in your body, like our entire schooling is exercise progressions and modifications. And even if it's not really truly, even if you'd think it would be, but like accessibility, inclusive focused, at least I have that idea of like, oh, you can't do that. You can do this, 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 and this. Oh, that doesn't work today. You can do this. Like that's boom, 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 ready to go for me. So when I go on the internet and I see these people with their clickbait posts and they got the X's everywhere, don't do this, stop doing that, and there's like the check marks and then like it was like infomercials. That does nothing to me. It's just like, shh. But for someone that doesn't have any background, it might get you. It might get you. So people that don't have a background, I honestly, and that's why I always try to talk about that a lot, is understand that when you go on the internet, nobody knows you. They're just guessing. How could they know you? So when somebody on the internet is, well, you need this. You don't know me, do I? Maybe. So kind of approaching things with that level of like, no, no, I live in my body. I can figure out if this works for me. Rather than giving that agency to a stranger can be life changing for people. In terms of how I manage myself and my illness is, for me, everything comes at a cost. Everything comes at a mental, whether it's mental or physical, it comes at a cost of my energy, and I only have so much. So, and I could try to plan, quote unquote, everything correctly, and it still doesn't go well. But typically speaking, that is how I approach the way that I spend my time. So, if I want to play soccer on Sunday, that means I'm not going to a farmer's market and walking around outside. I can only do one. There's not going to be two things outside, you know. If I know that I'm going to do pole class twice this week, then I probably won't lift as hard, or I'll try to lift earlier so I have days in between for rest. Or I'll try to make sure that I'm doing it on days that I'm not working all day and then trying to do something, because that doesn't always work for me either anymore. Um, but that is also, it's a big learning curve, and it's something that's hard to figure out, takes a long time to figure out. You just have to pick one variable and go from there, because I came from a body that used to be able to do a hot yoga class and then go lift for 2 hours. I couldn't dream of doing that. I can't, at this point in my life, I can't even mentally focus on one activity for more than like 40 minutes. So, like, that's not my brain anymore. That's not my body anymore. And kind of just continually having that mindset that I don't know which body I'm gonna get this week, this hour, and that's fine. I'll figure it out. I don't have to love it, but I'll figure it out.
Because that's what it is. That's is
That's
where
what it.
things are at. Yeah.
That's just where it's at.
Yeah, and a hard won journey. That was definitely not something I can assume that you just overnight were like, oh, and this is how I'm going to navigate everything. You had to learn, oh, yeah, nope, I did that farmer's market today and I played soccer and that was too much. So now I know moving forwards, a constant learning and awareness of yourself, which is really, as you said, I love that. And I don't have to love it, but here it is. And that is what.
Constant inventory being taken. And there are so many things that are new situations, and you might not be, it might be your first rodeo. You don't know how it's gonna go, you know? So for like the soccer example, that was a real example. I went to an event and then I went to the soccer, and I had to sit out. I was having an asthma attack. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. I've been outside for like 5 hours now. I'm hot. That's a lot of pollen. Duh. But I'm not, I'm not gonna sit there and just be mad at myself for that happening. It just is. Oh well.
And then going back to what you said in the description in your bio is like a spoonie. And so for anybody who doesn't know what spoonie means, and to my understanding, we only have so many spoons. And especially when you have chronic illness or disability, that those spoons are even less. And so is this, am I correct in understanding that? Tell me if I'm wrong, or maybe share the more
Yeah,
accurate
that's the general
explanation.
vibe. And it is by I always forget how to say the name, Christine Miserando, something like that, made the spoon theory. And not everybody likes to use that or identify it. Some people have their own terms. Some people just say chronically ill, some people just say disabled. It doesn't matter, but it makes sense to me. But the idea is like you start your day off with, let's say, 100 spoons. And let's say you're an able bodied person, no health conditions. 100 spoons every day that you wake up, the shower is going to cost three, doing your hair is going to cost two. Like everything's going to have, it's going to make sense, cut and dry. When you have a chronic illness, disability, anything else going on, I might wake up with 50 spoons for no reason. Tomorrow a shower for me might cost 20 spoons, just because. So it really just means that everything comes at a cost, and that cost can change from day to day. And what you have available can change from day to day.
Yeah, and I like that too because I'm such a visual person, so I love like
Hmm.
yes, okay, I can see the spoons, and then that's more tangible rather than the I'm assuming the intangibility of like, oh wow, yesterday I showered and that was fine. Today I showered and that wasn't fine. Like that, like what the hell? And it's like, all right, okay, spoons. I only have so much today, and
Yes.
it kind of normalizes and gives permission for the abstraction of one's energy levels and output and input and yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It can be very tough because it's not either or, cut and dry.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's
But
fluid,
it
it's
is
dynamic.
anything, don't we
Hmm.
want that safety in the binary thinking and then no, it is not cut and
Hmm.
dry.
We
Yeah.
are obsessed with the neat and tidy that doesn't exist.
No, no, it doesn't. And so I love that as we're talking about strength training here and love, love, love is, you're like powerlifting and like that's a lot, or like any sort of strength training can be a lot. And I like that you named that it comes with a cost. And I think that that's for everybody. And knowing one's limits and knowing that we're always changing is so important to talk about that. So this is your personal experience. And then as a physical therapist working with different people. And I love what
Hmm.
you said about being, what did you say? It was like a private
Private
investigator for pain.
investigators. Yeah.
Yes, yes, right? Because you don't know. The person probably really kind of doesn't know either. So you're both collaborating and working together to try to figure out what's going on with them. So without making mass generalizations, or we might have to make some mass generalizations, do you, in your professional experience, I'm assuming you're quite biased towards strength training and the benefits of it to whatever capacity that is.
Hmm.
So when you have different people coming to you for different things, do you tend to want to move them towards strength training, like strength a component of the rehab and the healing that you might be doing with them? I recognize this is a mass generalization and everybody's going to have different things.
Well, it's a two-part answer. The first part is this is why I said earlier strength training can mean anything. I like barbell sports. I like strength sports. But strength training can mean anything. It could mean calisthenics, it could mean isometrics, it could mean resistance bands, it could mean small dumbbells, it could mean barbells, it could mean kettlebells, it could mean the stair climbing machine on a high resistance. So it could mean body weight. Strength training can mean anything, and strength will always be a component for anybody in physical therapy. Like the general components, whether we're talking about babies, grandmas, whether we're talking about stroke, we're always going to be thinking strength, balance, walking, range of motion. Like that's just the bread and butter of physical therapy. Those are always involved. So, but the movements, strength training with weights and like squats and deadlifts, those are all functional movements. So, I might have somebody's papa doing standing up and sitting down from a chair. For him, that is strength training. He's doing body weight squats. He's doing body weight box squats. So that's not really any different. Everyone's going to get into that form of like a functional movement, or even taking things that are like wall balls in CrossFit. If I want a baby to get stronger, sometimes I'll do that. I'll have them throw a ball. Hey, throw this ball to the ceiling. They got to pick it up and throw it. They're doing wall balls. Like, they don't know. They're just having fun. So yeah, strength training could be anything.
And that's such an important distinction because I think if we did a poll of people on the street, I think, and you say, what is strength training? I think most people will start to I think, unconsciously assume that it's a guy with big muscles who's really jacked
Eating
and like,
chicken breast and broccoli.
yes, exactly. All blended in a smoothie with their creatine and whatnot. But yeah, so
Yeah,
like that kind of thing. And I think that unconscious story of what strength training is probably does people a disservice, because I know so many people think, well, I can't do it. I'm scared to get hurt. I
absolutely.
don't know what to do. And so I think this is so important to really continue to reframe this experience of, and the examples that you gave us, to whatever capacity meets the person where they're at.
Yes, definitely. Because the idea of strength training is that there is progressive overload. And so if you're just doing body weight squats, and I don't say just like to demean it, but like that's the only thing you're doing, and that is hard for you, and you are sore from that, that is strength training. But if you do it and it's easy, okay, well, now you're not strength training anymore because you're not building any strength. Now you need to grab some weights. So, like, that's where the distinction is. What are you starting from? What are you working on, or what are you working towards? And then there's, like I said, there's so many ways to add resistance. You can get into barbells, there's kettlebells, there's dumbbells, there's weighted balls like medicine balls. You can do, strapped weights like wrist, ankle weights, even the
Resistance
resistance
bands.
bands. There's a loop
Yeah.
band, there's long bands. You can go
Yeah.
so many places with it. You can find something that makes sense for you in your brain and makes sense with your body. Like there's nothing that has to be done.
Hmm. And also what's affordable too, because sometimes people can't necessarily afford to get to a gym that has all the equipment. Maybe it's just what we have around the house. And that's what I always like to do, is just get creative and offer Like maybe it's your like a brand new laundry jug, brand new meaning it's like
Oh yeah,
full of the liquid, and maybe that
yeah,
works. So
dog
it's
food.
yeah, yes, absolutely. Dog food, yes. And how wonderfully functional is that too? And it's like this big awkward bag, and then sometimes I like to like pick it up onto my shoulder and be like, yeah, and feel all strong and good. And there's that nice asymmetrical movement. So there's things that we can have around the house, and I think that's a good, again, reframing of what strength training is that what do you have nearby? What can you add on? Do you have heavy
Yeah.
rocks? Grab some, bring them into your
Yeah, I mean,
backyard.
folks got very, when the pandemic first started, people definitely got very, very creative with figuring out what they have. The other part of strength training too is, I mean, fitness is still very much tied to aesthetics, and so some people avoid it because they don't want to end up looking a certain way. Um, and nobody can tell you how you're gonna look. Like, and whenever I would go to a powerlifting competition, there's going to be 10 different body shapes. Like nobody's going to look exactly like me because I'm me. Like we all have different body shapes and sizes. So there are some folks that are like, "Oh, well, I don't want to work out because I only want to grow a butt, or I only want to, I only want to lose belly fat." It don't work that way. You don't know what's going to happen. That's not really how that works. So like letting that go and just thinking more of, well, what do I gain from this strength? What do I gain from lifting something more, a little bit more than what I can handle? Maybe it's doing the laundry, maybe it's the groceries in one trip, maybe it's lugging your car seat and the stroller. Like everyday things that we deal with are fucking heavy. Like why are we scared to strength train? We have to lift heavy things in real life. Yeah.
Hold on,
Yeah.
sorry, we the thing just froze and it's okay. We are still recording. Okay. Edit. No, no, no. All right. Because I just said a new recording. Jet's never done that before, but
Oh.
okay. We're good. No, we're good. We're still recording. Sweet mother of God. I hope that doesn't. Okay. But yeah, so how, but to, yeah, we want to have that quality of life when we age, to lift the groceries and to even be able to reach something in the top shelf or take a heavy
Yeah.
something down from a shelf and have the trust in one's body to do that. Cause it's not just like the capacity, but I trust myself and I trust that if I wobble and slip, I'm not like I've got the core and a whole body proprioception to kind of, I'm not going to have this tragic fall, hopefully, because I've built that functional strength. Like these are
Yeah.
real life things. So, in your experience working with people, do you find that people are resistant to adding strength training? But then I realize that what is strength training, and maybe again, the capacity that you're working with your clients
Hmm.
is maybe peeled back a little bit more, as we said, of just, well, that's standing and sitting. It's more meeting people where they are in a rehab sort of setting. But do you ever find resistance from your clients?
Necessarily. I mean, the biggest thing, unfortunately, is like women, femme presenting folks just being afraid of looking bulky, or, oh, I just want to get toned a little bit. Um, just those kind of aesthetic based narratives that are really untrue, unattainable, just designed for you to keep hating yourself because when you're miserable, you keep trying to fix it. And guess what? You spend money to fix it. So somebody's making money off of that? So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like the overarching cultural societal thing that is ridiculous. So that would I would say is outside of like my physical therapy. That's more just day to day. People that I meet, people that I encounter. So like there are people that I have inspired to get a gym membership and start lifting weights, and they never considered doing it before, but they saw me doing it and was like, oh, that looks cool. But then at the same time, there was like my mother, God rest her soul, rest in peace. But like whenever I competed, she didn't want to know. She just wanted me to call her when it was done and tell her I was alive. Like to her, my uterus is gonna fall out. So like on the one hand, it's like you want to find support and folks that are inspired and on the same vibe of like we can do shit that seems scary. And then on the other hand, you also have to accept everybody's not going to meet you there, but that doesn't affect your journey and where you're going.
It's that like unconscious, conscious cultural story, societal story that we all have as women, femme presenting people. Is just like what is strength, and you're supposed to be dainty and small and not take up a lot of
Mm-hmm.
space.
Yeah, it's got to be
And
small weights.
oh, no, 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 no. Well, and
Yeah.
I've talked about this on another podcast where we mentioned like the smaller weights tend to be pink.
Yep.
Like,
Yep, they
so
do. And no shade to small weights because if you take a bar class, you're gonna die. No shade to small weights, but that's not what they have in mind for us. You know, just moving around like daintily having fun, like yay. Not waking up sore, not sweating, just being cute and dainty and fragile, you know?
And you're so right. It is that bigger cultural story, and it's so important to continue to, and for anybody listening to out there, to continue to just show up as ourselves in the way that we can or can't move, and have that representation so that it does inspire more people to disrupt that dominant narrative of dainty and small and only lift the light and what, like whatever
Mm-hmm.
these stories, or I'm not, my joints aren't made for strength training, or like just any of these things that are not helpful or accurate. Because
Yeah,
in my experience, it's like what keeps me going is that I just feel so strong and badass every time I do it. And I
absolutely.
in the mental game, and I like get in it and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do this. And then I did something that I didn't think I
Exactly.
could.
It makes you take up space. You know, all of the things when the system works as designed, it doesn't want you to do those things. So, of course,
Hmm.
they want you to stay dainty and small and fearful and meek and mild. But you know, you go ahead and put some weight on your back and you stand up with it, or you pick something up off the floor, or you toss something overhead, or you know, you do something you couldn't do before, and all of a sudden, oh wow, I'm not gonna let somebody just talk to me, however. But you know what I just fucking did yesterday? Like, no, that's not me anymore. Like, I don't know what I could do. And also, it helps in all aspects of just the jobs that we have. So many of us don't realize how physical our jobs are. Um, and even if you are like a wheelchair user, just, you know, packing your chair and putting it in the car, that requires a lot of strength. You know, or you know, if you're a teacher, you might not think that that is a labor intensive or physical, but of course it is. You're always bending down, you're always getting up, you're putting books there, you're always standing on some stuffed shelf to reach this and that. Like all of those things require strength, and they all will just be easier if you're stronger. It's just that is a blanket statement that I am confident in making.
Agreed. Yes. Agreed. Truly. And I think it's funny that you say that too, because it makes me think, all the office workers, for example, who are trying to find ergonomic chairs and the right, like ergonomic everything, when really, and this is me simplifying totally, but when you have that sort of base level of strength and capability, maybe is it the ergonomic chair, or is that you just need to get a little bit stronger so that you can have the capacity to sit in your chair for a little bit longer. That being said, of course, move more often in a variety of ways, da da da. But chairs aren't going to kill you. But that sense of, again, consumerism that you mentioned before, to make us keep buying because things aren't good enough. And I think this is another angle of that. Like, I need my special gadget or my ergonomic chair or the thing that's really like, hey, guess what? Lift heavy things and maybe you'll be able to sit or stand for longer periods of time just because you have that base of strength and stability.
And I feel like that it's hard for me to speak about movement at all without talking about what society has programmed us to think. Because if you tell anybody, like, oh, why don't you strength train? Or, oh, why don't you try this? Even yoga, oh, why don't you try yoga? And 9 times out of 10, the negative thing that they're going to say is going to be like, well, do you believe that? Or did somebody teach you this? You know? It's even people that say, like, oh, I don't have the right, like you said, oh, I don't have the joints for that. Oh, I have bad knees. Do you believe that? Or did somebody tell you if you have this, you can't do that? And who benefits off of you believing that? Because it's not you, right? Because now you just didn't try it at all. Um, so that is, it's hard for me to speak about any form of movement without getting into that mindset. And that's honestly why, like, the book that I have coming out has so much journaling in it and mental stuff, because I'm like, I can't just give you exercises. Like, that's not, we have to get bigger. That's not enough.
I was going to say 100%, 1,000,000%. We are these products. We were just talking about this again on another podcast recording yesterday. Because so many of us don't realize we're swimming in this water. We don't realize we're swimming in capitalism and and white supremacy and colonialism and the patriarchy. All these things that we're like, oh, I have this belief and sense of myself, and it's unique and organic to me. It's like, actually, no. This is
Do
the
you
one.
though?
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you though?
yeah.
It's I don't know about that,
Exactly.
buddy.
No. So you kind of
Yeah,
lift your head out of that water and be like, oh shit, I've been swimming in this whole time. So I
yeah.
love, love, love exactly this. You've named it, and then in your book that we need to do those exercises. Not the literal physical exercises, but the
The mental
writing
ones.
exercise.
Yeah.
Because that's what
Um,
prevents us from doing the things that are good for us. Because we have these stories about ourselves, we have these stories about this and that. And I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's pretty fair to say, objectively, we need to strength train and we need to move.
everybody
Yes,
needs a strength train. Everybody
but as you
does.
said, there's all these other things that are in the way of that and are in our perception of that. Tell everybody the name of this amazing book that has just also launched in the world, so that they can go out and read it
Oh yes.
and do these
Yes.
exercises.
All right. Yes. The book, Movement for Everybody, you can pre-order, but it's not available like in hand on your phone until August 13th. So audiobook, physical book, ebook, all of that. I also made like a video exercise tutorial accompaniment for people that might need to see it. The book has images, but maybe you need to see the motion, like in motion. So I also have videos to accompany that. Also, I don't know when this podcast will be published, but I'm also doing like a 4 week challenge before the launch. So that will be on YouTube and the socials, kind of like dip your toe in the water of what's the vibe, what's happening. So that'll be fun.
Amazing. Okay, and we'll have all the links for the book as well. And
The other thing I wanted to say too is like it can be hard, and as somebody that literally has medical trauma, like it can be hard when there are people that you inherently should be able to trust, but you can't because they're swimming in the water with you. They're in the same shit. They're in the same dumpster fire with us. So there are doctors out there that'll say, "Well, just do swimming instead. Just do Pilates," which you can you can hurt yourself doing Pilates. You can hurt yourself doing swimming. You could take
yoga,
the wrong
doctors.
type of yoga class. Take
Yeah.
just do something relaxing like yoga. What kind of yoga? Because Ashtanga's not going to be relaxing. What if you just walked into that? You would die. Like, so it can be tough. There are people we should be able to inherently trust in healthcare, in fitness with their certifications, but we can't always. They don't always have the answers. They really don't. Sometimes they cause more harm than anything. So it can be very tough to navigate that when you have, no background, no support, and you're totally lost. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And you got some Joe Schmo telling you, well, just try yoga and drink more water. And you're like, well, I already drink a gallon a day. Actually, I already do yoga. So why? Hmm.
Hmm. And you
So
don't know
it
what
can
you
be
don't
tough.
know. So many people don't know what they
Yes.
don't know. And so then when they go to that person who has that confidence and that authority, perceived authority or culturally given
Yeah.
authority, it's hard to tell. And again, going back to what you said way earlier about then we've got those fitness influencers with the X's. Oh, I so know what you mean. Oh my God, right? Like those, don't do this.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. And that is a hard way to navigate. So then for anybody who's listening to this, who's been listening to you going, uh-huh, uh-huh, that's me. Oh yeah, no, my doctor told me to do yoga. I exactly went to a Bikram class or something and I broke everything and it just was not the right thing. My question then is how do people sort of find that trust? Is there a way in your experience, or is it similar to this, just to being a spoonie in a way of recognizing, I got to do some trial and error, and okay, I went to that person and wait, my gut told me this was not right. Let's hear what you say about that.
I mean, that would be pretty much my answer is being connected with yourself and your gut feeling, your intuition, what you know is objectively true, what you don't feel good about. And that can be very hard. I mean, that's a skill I'm just learning. And I'm like 3 years in deep of therapy, of really learning what intuition means and what, like, oh, I'm having a visceral reaction to something. I wonder why. Like, understanding those things in yourself when people are talking to you can be life changing in and of itself. And then the other part of it that makes intuition hard is whether or not, like, for me as a black woman, it's like, I'm superwoman. I have to be strong all the time. So like I'm pretty much just repressing emotions pretty much my whole life. But for some people that might not really be an actionable thing. It might just be, you just had a baby and all you're worried about is the baby. Or, like your mom's in the hospital, that's all you're worried about. Sometimes you really might not just have that space to just be in tune with yourself. So that shit's hard. So that's a long game. But the short game is understanding that anybody that you see, healthcare provider, yoga teacher, Pilates studio, personal trainer, anybody that you see is being invited to share your healthcare journey. Like you are inviting them. The same way that they ask you questions, you can ask them questions, right? The same way that they went to school and learned things, you could go on online, you could buy a book, you can learn things too. There's no power dynamic. I don't give a shit what degree they have. Anybody can be wrong. And if you feel like you encounter a person where if you brought that thought, they would be butthurt, there you go. There you go. So take that vibe with you. Anybody that you invite into your world earns that place. It is a privilege for them to be in the space exploring things with you, not for you, not telling you what to do. Because we have a very much big power structure, kind of hierarchical. I know things best. I'm the teacher, you're the student. I'm the doctor, you're the patient. No, that really shouldn't be the vibe. But, we're all swimming in the same shitty waters, like we said. So we all have this framework to unlearn and unpack.
So many levels in all the ways.
Yeah.
And I love that because I think that's really powerful. And I think that still speaks to the sense of strength, right? That takes
Yeah.
strength to even know that you're allowed to invite somebody into your healing, that you're not just going to default and be like, yes, tell me, oh wise doctor, whoever, what is my life? But it takes strength to go, whoa, 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 no, 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 we're in this together. And in that, have your own sense of autonomy. And what I love as a person who loves movement and teaches movement, what strength training, you named this earlier too, and what strength training gives me is that like actual feeling of, okay, this is what it feels like in my body to hold steady and strong, to do something challenging that I'm not comfortable doing.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I'm adding more weight than I ever have. Can I do this? Yes, you can. That's in my voice the whole time. You're so strong. And then doing it. And then I did it. And then so I have this embodied feeling of capability and strength that I'd like to hope that carries forth again in these more nebulous scenarios where it's like, oh, the normal story is that I'm going to give my authority over to somebody else because they're the expert.
Mm-hmm.
But and yes, that expertise, they have more expertise than me, but I love the framing that you have of it where it's just, oh no, we're in this together. I'm inviting you into this experience. Things like strength training to whatever degree gives you that embodied sense of strength that hopefully, translates into
Yeah, absolutely.
hard scenarios, uncomfortable conversations in life, doing the work the
Absolutely.
long game that you said with our therapists, going, ah, right, I do
Yeah,
that.
that's the one.
Shit.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
that's the one way. That's the
Because that
one way.
takes
But the short
capacity and
game, we can
strength.
all, yeah, that's a lot. We
Yeah.
can all accomplish the short one, though. We can all accomplish. You can hire and fire anyone as you choose. Because, yeah, they could be the expert. They could be a freaking SME, a subject matter expert. But guess what? They're an expert of a matter on a piece of paper, and you are a person that they don't know.
Mhm.
So it's not black and white. It's not neat and tidy. You're not a book. You're
Yes.
not a textbook. You're not a case study. You're not a lab value. You're a living, breathing human being who has tons of different abilities, tons of different things required of you in your daily life.
And you as a physical therapist too, I think that really speaks to you. Obviously, I'm going to make mass assumptions here. This is, I'm assuming, how you see your patients and the people and your clients who you work with. And so maybe people who are listening to this being like, okay, right, I can invite people into my healing journey. I'm not going to bow to the authority of somebody else. Oh, okay, reframe. This is maybe another filter. The people that you're choosing in is, do they talk like Marcia is talking? Like, are they seeing
Yeah,
you as a whole dynamic, complete person who we're in this together trying to figure it out? And I think that sounds like a
absolutely.
really great, yeah, guideline.
Absolutely. Yeah, because everything is a big picture. I mean, you could come to me because you have knee pain, and I could say, does this hurt? Does this feel better? And I could give you a set of exercises and say I did a good job, right? But if I don't ask you, well, what do you do for work? How many hours of sleep do you get every night? Do you wake up rested? What kind of things are you eating? Are you hydrated? Are you feeling well nourished? Do you have anything else going on that I should know about? Do you have any other previous injuries of your other body parts? Like what's your day to day like? What are the physical demands of your week looking like? Like I would be much better in serving you if I knew all of these things. Because if I just gave you a set of exercises and said, "Hey, do this," and I didn't find out that you work at a hospital and you're on your feet all day, we could have talked about shoes, you know? Or I didn't find out that you have to care for, a disabled sibling, then I could have talked about body mechanics with you and how are you lifting them? Oh, and what kind of things could you buy to make it easier? Like everything matters. It's kind of like, if you go to a stomach doctor and they only ask you about specific, oh, well, how many cans of soda do you drink in a day, and they don't ask you anything else. Like, do you even have a lunch break? you know? Do you have access to food that is real that you can afford? Do you have a car? Like, we have to get all inclusive because, again, we are people. We're not pages in a book. All of these things change the way that we heal and change the way that we move. And we could take that same idea when it comes to these clickbait fitness influencers because, again, we're not just pages in a book. We are people. So, maybe doing bicep curls, it's not functional, but maybe that's all we have time to do. And all we can afford is a 15-pound kettlebell, and that's what we got. But guess what? That alone can help you lift your groceries. So that's good enough.
Should be the new fitness influencer kind of thing. Hey, we need more of this. This is what you are doing on the internet. And so you are spreading this message. But I like, may we one day have this be the
Oh
normal,
gosh.
this conversation. And of course, it
It
won't
doesn't
sell
sell.
money. It
It
won't,
doesn't
yeah,
sell.
doesn't keep the eyes on the algorithm. And that is, again, the water that we're swimming in. But I think let's just keep talking about it and keep naming it and keep seeing it. And for people listening, again, keep discerning, using this as your discernment as you go to your different healthcare
Yeah, definitely.
practitioners. Yeah. And those who are listening who are healthcare practitioners, maybe there's some tweaks that you can do. Maybe you think that you're being that way. And maybe hearing Marcia actually beautifully contextualize it so well. It's like, oh, maybe there's a gap. Maybe I actually could tweak that a little bit more with my patients so that we're all getting the benefits. Because isn't that what we want? Isn't this why we're in these different professions, to help ourselves, to help each other, so that
Absolutely.
we can live wonderful, great lives as best we can. And to use your words earlier, the dumpster fire of the world that
Yeah.
we're
The
in.
hot lava dumpster fire. There's that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
there's that for a different conversation. And maybe that should be the next one
uh,
of how do we build strength and
yeah.
resilience in the world we're in now? But that's number one, and
Yeah.
that's actually something that for me as a yoga slash movement teacher is always just been this message, like move your body so that you can feel good, but don't let it stop there, right? Like so
Yeah.
that you're feeling good, so that you have more capacity to do good, to hopefully see these systems that we're in, to just then disrupt the systems that we're in whatever capacity that life throws at us.
And to go back to an earlier question about what resistance do I find to resistance training? The other
Mm,
big thing is people are just scared of pain, scared of hurting
yeah,
themselves, scared of this. But I mean, you could hurt yourself sneezing and reaching into the bathtub. You could blow out a disc like that. That just it's not that, you know. You could accidentally drop some water in the kitchen, slip, fall, hit your elbow. You gotta hurt yourself doing something somehow, right? So we're not living in bubbles. Like we're not going to be able to avoid pain in that sense. But in the chronic pain sense, that can also be hard to navigate. But that all really goes still back to just awareness of yourself and your body and how you respond to different things. So understanding that, different loads will feel uncomfortable, different movements might hurt, but does it hurt right now? And I'm good when I stop. Did I wake up and now I'm in pain for a week? Is this actually pain or is this soreness? These are all things that require a lot of awareness. You can't just willy nilly do anything and expect to not feel things in your body. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Somehow we think, okay, I'm going to hurt, or maybe somebody did lift weights and they hurt themselves, or I did do this yoga pose or Pilates move or whatever, and I hurt myself, and I don't want to do it again. But
Yeah.
good reminding that, yeah, pain will and can happen in any capacity. So hopefully then we've got that baseline of strength to help us either recover if pain and an injury or an accident does happen. It also maybe it helps improve the recovery outcomes and timing of it, or your just capacity to handle stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. I would say for older folks, the biggest one is like, oh, well, I have bone on bone. I can't do, okay. That's your bones. Is that all you are? Is a bone? Or do you have tendons and ligaments and fluids and lymph and blood and guts and fat? Like, okay, we can still move everything else. So what does that have to do with it? Um, but people have a lot of just limiting frameworks about pain and what that means. Like, oh, well, I have bone on bone. I can't do that. Or, well, I get dizzy when I stand up. I can't do strength training. Okay, so lay down and do something. Like it can be in any position in any way, but we get so stuck and limited until, oh, well, I can't do that because of XYZ. Well, then flip it around. Well, I can't do it this way, but maybe I could do it a different way. How else can I do this?
That is
Because again, yeah, having the limiting belief is like it doesn't serve you. Why is it there? Throw it out.
yeah, it's true.
Toss it.
Oh, we need more of this. Let's shout it to the rooftops, Marcia. That's exactly it. And it's so much more optimistic, and it's so much more, again, disruptive of those deep patterns. And it goes back to what you're saying and why you have those writing exercises in your book to really do the inner work of these belief systems so that we can think, okay, well, what else is possible? Okay, I love that example of like, well, I get dizzy standing up. Well, then let's do a lying down. Like there's always a way in, and there's always an
Yeah.
option. Oh, yeah. So yeah. So
Yeah.
sorry, I had a big sigh because I just think about this with like the yoga world that I'm in, and I teach the teaching of the teachers, and so often I'm doing things that are so different, and I get this feedback still to this day where some people are like, wait, are you allowed to change that pose? You mean I don't have to do it? I'm like, yes, God, like,
Yeah, of
please, like,
course.
go at, like,
And it's
make
so
it.
sad. It's so sad for yoga specifically because that's where yoga comes from. It comes from being in tune with yourself, your mind and your body. But yet people told you a certain way it has to be done. Again, who told you that? Who benefits from it? Right? The people selling cute leggings, people selling $100 and something yoga mats. We don't even need yoga mats. You got a nice plush carpet, you're good. So it just, yeah, it's infuriating.
Yeah. And so, thus, again,
Yeah,
having that sense of strength and that inner work of going, okay, I'm allowed to do it differently. I'm allowed to not look like everybody. I'm allowed to, because like what's right for
exactly.
me. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that
Uh,
doesn't mean that you're always going to be 1,000% like, yeah, I'm on some boss ass bitch shit. Nobody could tell me anything. Like, no, I mean, you're still gonna have doubts and feel, not confident in new situations and whatever. There's ebbs and flows to it. I mean, you can still have grief about you wanted to do it a certain way and you can't. That's
mhm.
fine. But the big umbrella, the big picture is what it is. I'm gonna make it work for me.
Mm, it is what it is. I'm going to make it work for me.
Yeah.
That gave me like a sigh of just like an instant, like, okay, yes.
Yes. That one.
Yes,
That's
that's
the
the
one.
one. That is acceptance, permission, care, love.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, well, so good, Marcia. This has been deeply wonderful, empowering, and I hope everybody listening is just ready to do what it is for them, however it is for them, whatever strength training looks like for you one day. And of course, if you want to follow Marcia's amazing classes and teaching, move with Mar on Instagram, YouTube as well, some
Yes.
classes there. And of course, on Heart and Bones Online, you can come. And Marcia also actually has some great like move and learn classes. So bringing her amazing educational wisdom. You get to see this permissive approach. That's what I love about some of your clients. You're like, maybe your shoulder wants to do this today, maybe it doesn't. That's fine. Like I just is such the like
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not that it was never that serious.
yeah,
That's the
right.
vibe.
It was
Yeah.
yes, this isn't gonna yes, I love that. It was never
Yeah.
that serious. Let's just move, tune in, and feel
Yeah.
good.
That's
Yeah.
it.
So good. And then again, your podcast, all the different things that we will link, you are a wealth of information. And I love how much you also just continue to freely share that information and offer a beautiful opportunity to disrupt these stupid
Yeah.
systems and the
Silly,
stupid
silly, the
algorithm.
silly goose notions.
Yes.
Tomfoolery, the
Yes.
shenanigans. But yeah, thanks
Shenanigans.
for giving me the space. It's a great combo.
Happy to have
Marcy
you.
here, and let's ease into some sweet, sweet